So hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. Thank you again to Rachel for speaking. Rachel Despres is a career coach for rebels who specializes in helping people to break free of their cubicles and create unconventional careers that truly fit who they are. Thank you for speaking today, Rachel, and I'm looking forward to enjoying your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me today. I'm just going to quickly change my PowerPoint into present mode. All right, is that into full screen mode for everybody now? Alex, can you give me a yes, because I can't see the chat anymore.
Hi, Rachel. Yeah, it's good. I can see it.
Okay, beautiful. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you to Toronto Jobs for having me back to speak with you today, and to all of you for taking the time to join me for this speaking session. My name is Rachel Despres, and Alex did a little intro of me too, but just to reiterate what he said, I'm a career coach for rebels, so I specialize in helping people to break free of their cubicles and create unconventional careers that truly fit with who they are. Emphasis on that last bit there, that aligning, making it fit with who you are, because whether you decide to pursue a conventional career or an unconventional career, a really crucial part of the process of figuring out what kind of work you want to do is making sure that it aligns with who you are. And that's what I'm going to be speaking about today. Now, I think theoretically, we all know that aligning your career with who you are is really important. In practice, however, very few people actually choose their career this way. I see it all the time with my clients. They find themselves really unhappy in their career and they just don't know why. And while there may be some other factors at play, like a bad boss or a dysfunctional company, what it really boils down to in almost all of the cases is that the job just isn't the right fit for them. So how is it then that most people end up choosing careers that aren't the right fit for them? What sort of decision-making parameters are they using to end up in situations where the job that they have is the right fit with who they are? I'm going to highlight some of the most common ones that I see. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but this is just the most common ones that I see in my practice as a career coach and also just out there in the world. So the first one is guidance from parents and teachers. And I put guidance in quotations because it's really the opinion of your parents and teachers, which is what they're offering to you, is their opinion of what they think you should be doing with your career. I know lots of people who've fallen into this. Maybe you have as well. And sometimes that guidance is helpful and sometimes it can lead us completely astray. But this is one of the things that people typically use to sort of guide them in the direction of what it is that they want to do with their career. The second thing is looking at what their friends or family are doing, right? As opposed to really doing some introspective thinking about what it is that they want to do and who they are, they just look at what other people are doing and they just kind of piggyback on their idea and go with that. I mean, we all probably know somebody in university whose friend went to university for anthropology or something like that, and they just kind of tagged along and did the same thing as opposed to deciding what they really wanted to do. The third thing, and this is a really big one, is perceived future income. So a lot of people will choose the kind of career path that they want to have or they want to go down based on how much money they think they're going to make from pursuing that kind of career path. So this happens a lot with professions like doctors and lawyers and dentists and accountants. People will choose that career path, not because it's actually what they want to do and not because it's actually a good fit with who they are, but simply because they have this preconceived notion that when they pursue that kind of career path, they'll make lots of money. And the last point is choosing something that looks cool or sounds cool, right? A lot of people do this where they'll see something on TV or they'll see a friend or family member doing something that looks cool and they'll go, oh, maybe I should try doing that. Or they'll choose something based on a job title that sounds really cool, right? This is like the CEO trap for a lot of people. A lot of people want to be CEO, but only because of how cool it apparently sounds and also the sort of power and prestige that's associated with it. So they're falling into that trap of just doing something that looks or sounds cool. Now, at first glance, you might not see any problems with choosing career paths based on these 4 things that I've just mentioned. But the problem is that none of them factor in one majorly important thing, and that's you, right? You're the one who's got to get up every day and do the work. So who you are and what works for you really needs to be central to your decision making, because you're the one who's got to do it every day. So how do you go about choosing a career that aligns with who you are? What factors should you be taking into consideration in order to end up in a career path that really fits? So this is the overview. So your values, your strengths and your talents, your passions, your interests, and your personality. Now, this is just the overview. Like I said, I'm going to go into each one of these a little bit more, and I'm going to give you an activity or a little challenge that you can do to start diving into what these things are for you if you're not sure. So the first one is values. So your values are the things that are most important to you. They're the principles by which you navigate the world. And they might not seem particularly relevant to your career, but they are. Because if you've ever been in a job that doesn't align with your values, or has friction with your values, or makes you feel like you have to compromise your values, it feels really, really bad. I've been in this situation more than once throughout my career, previous careers, not the career I'm in now, but previous career paths where they were definitely in direct conflict with my values. And it felt really, really awful. So how do you figure out what your values are so that you can steer clear of jobs that are going to be in conflict and find jobs that are going to be in alignment, or create jobs that will be in alignment with you? So I do this activity with my clients in my Cubicle Renegade coaching program, where I ask them, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing yourself, is to ask yourself what's important for you to do, have, and achieve in the different areas of your life. So this is like your career, your health, your relationships, friendships, family, learning and development, any of the areas of your life that feel particularly important to you. Ask yourself, what's important for me to do, have, and achieve in each of these areas? Now, you definitely don't have to do this now, and you definitely won't have time, but write down this activity to do at a later time. And then when you're asking yourself what you want to do, have, and achieve in each of these different areas, write your answers down. Don't just think about it. Write your answers down, because once you finish writing all of your answers down, you're going to want to go back over those answers and see which things came up more than once. So maybe it's things like travel, or that you really love learning and development, or having good relationships with friends and family, or just maybe in general in your life. These things that come up more than once as you're doing this activity, these are your values, or at least some of your values. This is by no means an activity that's going to help you nail down all of them, but it's going to help you get a good start on what your values are. But those are your values. Those are the things that you value the most, that are most important to you. And they're the things that bring you joy and fulfillment in your life. And joy and fulfillment is what a lot of people are seeking in their career as well. So if you can figure out what brings you joy and fulfillment in your life, then you can find those things in work as well. So this is why it's important to align your values with your career. The second point is around your strengths and your talents. So this is another important factor to explore to make sure that your career is aligned with who you are. Your strengths and your talents, these are the things that you do well and that come most easily to you. They might be things that you have sort of a natural knack for, like what we often refer to as talents, or maybe it's things that you've sort of worked at and learned and developed over time, which we often refer to as strengths. But how do you know what these strengths are, right? A lot of people will say, align your work with your strengths. But if you don't know what your strengths are, then this is a really challenging thing to do. So the first thing would be to look back at your past performance reviews. So if you have them still, or even if you can think back to conversations that you had with previous bosses, or maybe your current boss at previous times when you've had performance reviews, the easiest way to figure out what your strengths and talents are on the job is to look or think back to those performance reviews, because a lot of performance reviews are centered around your strengths. Certainly, there's always a component of things that you could improve on, but the vast majority of the conversation is around the things that you're doing really well. So that's the stuff that you want to kind of draw out of these performance reviews, is make a list of these things that you do really, really well. And if you don't have access to them, or you just can't remember what your performance reviews were, or just in addition to that, you can think, explore some peak experiences that you've had in your life. Now, peak experiences are defined as times in your life where you've felt like you were operating at your absolute best. You were tapping into your full potential. You were completely in flow with what you were doing. You were really engaged with the activity. These are peak experiences. And I want you to think back in your life when you've had these peak experiences, either in a workplace setting or outside of a workplace setting. And then once you've really, sat with those peak experiences and really remembered them vividly, which is why I'm closing my eyes, remembering them vividly in your mind, then I want you to think what it was that you were actually doing during those times that made them feel so good for you. What skills were you using, hard skills or soft skills, were you using during that time that made you feel so good? These things are your strengths and your talents. And the reason why these are peak experiences in your mind is because you were doing things that you excel at and that you do naturally, and you just felt like you were operating at your absolute best. That was a totally you moment. So make a list of these things, because once you have a list of what your strengths and your talents are, you can find work or create work that aligns with these things. And that's going to feel so, so good. The third thing is to explore your passions. Now, your passions are the things that you feel really strongly about. And this could be something that you feel strongly in support of, or something that you feel strongly against, right? Passion can go either way. But how do you discover what your passions are, right? This is the $1 million question. And I know a lot of career advice is like, follow your passions, follow your passions. And that's great if you know what your passions are. If you don't, this kind of advice is insanely frustrating. And I'm sure some of you can relate. I know I could years ago when I didn't know what my passions were either. So let's talk about how you can figure out what your passions are. So the first thing to think about, and this is an activity I do with my clients in my Cubicle Renegade coaching program, is an activity called the soapbox. So what are the things that you will get up on a soapbox about? What are the things that you can't stop talking about? The things that you will talk about at every possible opportunity, and people don't even have to prompt you to start talking about it. You just talk about it, because that's just, it gets you going. So think about what those things are. What are the things you'll get up on a soapbox about? And then in addition to that, I want you to think about what issues and injustices and principles and causes get you really riled up, right? Or alternatively, maybe they break your heart, right? So think about the stuff that you see on the news, or you read in the newspaper, or you read about online. What are the things that you get really upset about or really frustrated about, whether it's in your local community, in the province, in our country, or the country that you live in, or the world in general. But think about what those things are. And then again, write these things out. Make a list for yourself. You're going to have so many passions. That's the thing. This is just a way for you to start tapping into what your passions are. And they will change and they'll evolve over time, because you change and evolve over time. So this list, it'll give you a good sort of pool of things that you can tap into, that you can sort of selectively choose. Yeah, I want to pursue that passion. And you can see how those passions will align with certain organizations or certain causes, or you can create a career around these passions as well. It's what I did. My passion was helping people with work and helping people reframe their idea of what work is and what work could be. And so I created my own business around that passion. So figuring out what your passions are is essentially important. That career advice about following your passions is not astray, because when you know what your passions are, when you feel that lit up about your work every day, that passion will continue to fuel you as you go along in that career path, and no matter what challenges you face. So finding your passions is crucially important, and then following them, aligning your career with these passions is going to be a huge game changer for you. The next thing is your interests. So these are the things that you are into, right? These are the things that light you up, that light your fire, float your boat, right? That's what these things are. And a lot of people are pretty aware of what their interests are. So make a list, right? Just make a list of what your interests are. What are the stuff that comes up off the top of your head that you're like, yeah, I dig that. And then if you can't think about it, or maybe you make your list and you're just like, I feel like there's more there, but I just can't pinpoint it right now, then my activity for you for this particular area is to track what you spend your time on for a week. So what are the things that you are watching online or reading online? What are the movies and shows that you choose on Netflix or your streaming service of choice? Look around your house. What are your most prized possessions? What are the things that you're spending your money on? These are the things that, these are your interests, right? The stuff that you spend your time on and your money on is the stuff that you're interested in. And tracking it is really valuable, because I think you'll find that when you track it, especially if you do the tracking exercise for a week, you go back and look at that list. And although at first glance, they might seem kind of random, you'll find that a lot of your interests end up being grouped into certain genres or categories. And once you know what those sort of genres and categories are, then you can look for work that is related to those genres and categories. So maybe it turns out that you really dig history, and maybe you really dig a certain era of history. Maybe all the stuff you read online and all the stuff you watch on Netflix is around a certain era in history. Or maybe you're really into law, right? So you'll start to notice that a lot of these things will fall into certain categories. And then once you know what those categories are, you can seek out work that aligns with those categories. Because at the end of the day, you want to be interested in what you're doing, right? You're spending at least, at minimum, 40 hours a week doing that kind of work. So if you're not interested in it, it's going to be a wasted 40 hours. But if you are interested in it, it's going to make you feel alive. It's going to make you feel like you're doing work that's meaningful and purposeful, and you're going to feel really engaged in it. And the last thing to think about, although this is not a comprehensive list, this is just a way to get you sort of started. But the last thing to explore, to align your career with who you are, is your personality. Now, your personality, by definition, is the unique combination of characteristics and qualities that make up who you are. And all of the things that we've covered so far today, your values, your strengths and your talents, your passions and your interests, all of these things are components of your personality. So if you take the time to do these exercises that we talked about today, you'll already have a pretty clear idea of who you are. That said, our personality is so ingrained in us that we often don't really have a good view or lens on our personality, right? If somebody were to ask us about our personality, it's hard for us to explain those things because it's just who we are. It's just what we do, right? So an activity that you can do to get a more complete picture of your personality is to ask other people. So in my Cubicle Renegade program, the clients that I work with do an exercise called Phone a Friend, like the Lifeline from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And they talk to people in their social circle, so like friends, colleagues, family members. They talk to those people and ask them to describe them, ask them to tell them about themselves, who they are, what they're good at, what their tendencies are, what their strengths are, what some of their challenges are, hang-ups, and it gives them a really complete picture of who they are that they maybe couldn't see, which is such a beautiful thing. And this is actually one of the most powerful exercises that like all of my clients will be like, this was such a pivotal thing for me, because you don't see those things about yourself. We have blinders on for a lot of aspects of our personality. So if you don't feel like you have a good view on your personality, ask other people. And then the last idea, and I say this this is only in addition to, okay? So only if you've done some self-exploration about your personality, and then only if you've asked other people, should you do this last one, take a personality test. I know this is where most people start, but the trap with personality tests is that they're not accurate of exactly who you are, because you're an individual, and a personality test takes your results and it matches them with a result that's most closely related. But then people read these results and they think, oh, this is me verbatim, but it's not. So if you do the self-exploration aspect of it first and you ask other people to describe who you are, when you read your personality test results, you'll be able to go through and say, yep, that does actually sound like me. And then these other things, not really. And you'll just sort of discard them. So the personality test results will really just sort of reinforce the things that you already know. You shouldn't be learning anything new from a personality test. But aligning who you are with your personality is really crucial, because again, you're the person who's getting up every day and doing that work. So you want to make sure that it really jives with who you are. So just to do a quick recap, how to choose a career that aligns with who you are. The things to explore are your values, your strengths and your talents, your passions, your interests, and your personality. Now, you might be thinking, you know, these exercises will provide me with some pretty cool information about myself, but why is it so dang important to align my career with who I am? Why does it matter if my career is in sync with my values and my passions and my personality? Well, there are actually a multitude of reasons. So the first one is that it'll feel good, right? So doing work that aligns with who you are is going to feel so much better. You'll be enjoying it so much more, and so it won't feel like a drag anymore. I think we can all, agree that we've been in work that's felt like a drag. When it feels like a drag, it's a really clear indication that it is not a good fit with who you are. There is definite friction if work feels like a drag. So you'll know if your work is in alignment with who you are because it'll feel good. And that's also one of the perks of making sure you're aligning your work with who you are. And because you'll feel better when you're working, you're going to have access to way more of your potential. Dare I say, all of your potential. So you're going to be more on the ball, you're going to be more creative and more energetic in the work that you're doing every day. And because you're going to be doing things that'll come pretty easily to you, like, tapping into those strengths and talents like we were talking about, you'll not only be doing your best work because you'll be doing stuff you're strong at, but you'll do it with ease and enjoyment. And this is what a lot of people are looking for in their work, is ease and enjoyment. So a fast track to ease and enjoyment is to align your career with who you are. Now, these three reasons that I've mentioned already, these are pretty convincing, compelling reasons on their own to align your career with who you are. But if for some crazy reason you're still like, this sounds pretty good, Rachel, but I'm not sold yet on why I should align my career with who I am instead of just chasing a big paycheck, well, this next point's for you. You're going to make more money, right? So doing work that aligns with who you are is going to help you make more money. For all of these reasons that I just mentioned, it's going to feel better, which means you'll be more creative and on the ball and doing your best work. You're also going to have a great attitude and be excited about what you do. And all of that is going to help you attract opportunities and promotions and pay increases. And if you're working for yourself, it's going to help you attract clients and collaboration opportunities. So there are so many reasons. This is just a small snippet of reasons why aligning your career with who you are is important. But that last one, that usually seals the deal for most people, especially if they've just been chasing a hefty paycheck up until this point. You can make even more money, and you will make even more money when you align your career with who you are. But, making money is not everything. It's about the energy and attitude and how good it feels for you to have purpose and meaning in your work every day. That will outweigh the paycheck every single time. So that is the lowdown on how to align your career with who you are and why it's so important. Thank you guys so much for attending my speaking session today. As a thank you for being here, I wanted to offer you guys the first module of my Cubicle Renegade program that I've mentioned throughout the program. I wanted to offer you it for free. So I'll put the link to that in the chat for you guys. And then also, I'll hang out for a couple more minutes if anybody has any questions. I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. But thank you guys so much for being here today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was amazing. Sorry, I'm Rachel from the event. So just wanted to thank you. That was fantastic. I had a chance to actually listen to most of it. So yeah, thank you for being here. That was it was motivating and also inspirational. So I really enjoyed it. So if anyone has any questions, they can put them in the chat. So you said you'll be around for a little bit to answer any questions.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Two more sessions that started at 2:40. So we have 2 more speakers that'll be taking the stage, but I just wanted to hop on and say thanks so much. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What about if you already have a career? Shirley asks. Well, certainly there are things that you can do by exploring these things that we talked about today. You can start to figure out what it is that you actually do well and you enjoy a lot about the work that you do. And then you can start to make some tweaks to your current career so that it aligns better with who you are without having to necessarily change career paths altogether. It's just about awareness and then intentional, making some intentional pivots so that it better aligns. Louise asks, is there any personality test that you recommend? Well, the most common one that a lot of people will pursue or take is the Myers-Briggs. You can take that. It is paid, but there is this free version that's similar to it called 16 Personalities. I'll just put the name in the chat. That one has a really thorough sort of results to it. So it gives you a really kind of thorough profile for free, and then you can also pay to get an even more complete profile. But like I said, only take personality tests if you've already done a ton of self-exploration and you've tapped into the people around you to ask them to help you discover yourself as well. Because personality tests are not accurate. They are just the closest to the answers that you give on the day that you do that test. So please don't use them verbatim. Oh, thank you, Fiona, for putting it in there. Are there any other questions? I don't want to hold you guys up too long in case you want to jump off to any of the other sessions. I will put my contact information in the chat again, in case you would like to connect with me after the conference today. Sorry, I'm just making sure this goes in here okay. Yeah, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. But thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you for attending the session and enjoy the rest of the conference.